The Harry Potter franchise is one of those that is great when you're a kid because it's wholesome and fun. It's also a franchise that's great when you grow up because it's also secretly pretty dirty in ways you never caught when you were a kid.
Bloody hell!
Okay, so I could do an entire video on how the Half-Blood Prince is a teenage angst fest by itself. Seriously, I don't know what happened between Harry Potter 5 and 6. The year before, everyone was all about training to be a secret wizard army to fight against Voldemort and Dolores Umbridge. The year after, everyone was more full of teenage hormones than a season of Riverdale. Ron Weasley especially was no longer just the cute comic relief, but a dude who was all about using his notoriety as Harry Potter's BFF to get some alone time with Lavender Brown. It's made very clear that Ron's intentions with her have very little to do with romance and a whole lot to do with how cute she was. Also, after 6 solid years of everyone in the world being obsessed with Harry, can you really blame the guy for falling for someone who's obsessed with him for a change? My favorite moment from this very CW era of Hogwarts came when several girls were checking Harry out, only for Hermione to complain that they were only interesting because he was the chosen one. His response,
"But I am the chosen one."
"Yeah, Harry, get it." So, can we all agree that Polyjuice Potion is kinda creepy? Sure, it was fun in Chamber of Secrets when it was depicted as a fun way to spy on your classmates while running the slight risk that you might turn into Taylor Swift from Cats. When the franchise matured, and its actors with it, however, the whole thing becomes pretty sketch. That's especially true of that one time Harry had to watch as everyone in the room became him before his very eyes. While Fred and George find the situation amusing in a way that Fred and George obviously would, the rest of the room is pretty well horrified. This goes doubly so for poor Fleur Delacour, who likely still sees a therapist 4 times a week about the incident. Her transformation and public disrobing is portrayed as if this is the most horrifying thing that's ever happened to her, and she competed in the Tri-Wizard tournament. What's even worse is that her fiancé Bill is doing a pretty terrible job of pretending he's okay with it. This guy gets turned into sort of a werewolf, and he seems more okay with that than what happens to his fiancé in this scene. The camera wisely pans away from Ron during this scene because we all know the first thing he checked the second he became his best friend. Maybe that's the reason he was jealous of Harry for the rest of the movie. During the first introduction to Hogwarts, it seems kinda cool that the school is infested by ghosts. By the midpoint of the series, however, it's clear that the school desperately needs to call the Ghostbusters or the Winchester brothers because they are absolutely the worst. If that wasn't clear before, it definitely became clear when Harry tries to figure out a clue for the Tri-Wizard tournament in the bath. Moaning Myrtle creepily floats her way in and sneaks more than a few peeks at the very underage Harry. Even though her age is frozen at the time where she lost her life, remember that she's about as old as Voldemort and Hagrid are. Gross! Yeah, so if Dumbledore could just hire Danny Phantom to throw them all back into the ghost zone, I think that would be great for everyone. You know, for a series that takes place in a magical school with very little adult supervision, there is a surprising lack of scenes that depict content that isn't PG-13. Seriously, Hogwarts is so sanitized that the magicians had to be created to balance out the scales of dirtiness. And it does. You might be surprised to learn that the filmmakers behind Prisoner of Azkaban may have snuck in a dirty scene right under everyone's noses. As you all know, the Marauders map is a cool piece of paper that allows Harry to sneak around Hogwarts without getting caught. Oh, he definitely never uses it to spy on anyone. Well, the end credits of Prisoner of Azkaban has a clever way of going through the various names associated with the production. The whole thing is framed around the audience looking into the Marauders map, little footprints walking around the castle and all. Only 2 sets of footprints aren't actually walking. No, they seem to be very close. So close that you've gotta wonder what exactly they were doing. Dancing! That's all I'm implying, YouTube. They were just dancing, really closely, without moving for several seconds. That's how you dance, right? So, Harry Potter's love life is pretty pathetic throughout most of the series. Despite the fact that he's a celebrity and one of the better-looking Gryffindors, he's just 6 different kinds of awkward. He falls in love with his Triwizard Cup rival's girlfriend, Cho Chang, is the worst Yule Ball date ever, and has Dumbledore completely ruin his flirt game with the coffee shop muggle. Seriously, I never would have talked to Dumbledore after that travesty. Like, can I save the world after I get that number, though? Harry's lovable awkwardness definitely peaks when he finally gets some alone time with Cho Chang. The two of them share a very wholesome smooch among the owls that's equal parts sweet and totally weird. Their hands are at their sides, neither really look into it, and it's all done while a picture of Cedric Diggory watches. What's even weirder is the scene right after where Ron asks Harry how it was. What is his response?
Wet.
He said it was wet! Out of all of the words they could have used, sweet, warm, hot, kinda awkward because it felt like the ghost of her dead boyfriend was there, why would they use the word wet? For the Harry Potter fans with dirty minds and dirtier fanfics, this definitely implies that a whole lot more went down after the camera faded. Well, it would if the scene right before weren't the most awkward thing ever put to film. Seriously, Ginny Weasley basically saved this boy from himself. There is a lot in this video about the Half-Blood Prince, I know, but there's one scene in this movie that disturbs me to my very soul. One choice made by an actor that is so cringe-worthy that I literally have to look away every time it's coming up like a snake's about to jump out of Batilda Bagshot. Yeah, I'm putting you on blast, Cormac McLagan actor Freddie Stroma. For some context, Cormac McLagan, like everyone else in the Half-Blood Prince, was trying way too hard to get a date. Hermione ended up going out with him, but only to make Ron jealous because he was dating Lavender. Wow, that is a really embarrassing sentence for a woman who grew up to be the Minister of Magic. Poor Cormac isn't really in on the situation, though, and seems to have a very different idea of where the evening is going than Hermione does. You could almost feel bad for him if he didn't do something so heinous during that dinner that he should have been locked up in Azkaban. I am, of course, referring to the moment where he suggestively licks ice cream off of his fingers, implying a whole lot of things that YouTube won't let me talk about. I blame you, Freddie Stroma, for this travesty. I mean, sure, you were committing to the character, and it seems like something he would do, but you are not forgiven. Can't unsee. I don't think it's exaggerating at all to say that Ron Weasley was the biggest jerk ever during Deathly Hallows Part 1. I mean, seriously, man, you've had 6 years of dangerous adventures with Harry, and the camping trip is what makes you snap? Horcrux or not, that's kind of embarrassing. This all comes to a head when Ron finally has a chance at redemption. The Horcrux opens and reveals Ron's deepest fear, that Harry and Hermione would end up together. Only the way the Horcrux chose to show this was way over the top. It depicted a fully naked Harry and Hermione just making out with each other like Harry just got home from deployment. David Yates, we understand that this scene needed to depict Ron's deepest, most shameful insecurities, but did they really have to be naked? Like, they're also positioned in a way that they can get away with a PG-13 rating without any parents thinking any funny business was shown. I really feel like he was just trolling the Harry and Hermione shippers more than the Horcrux was trolling Ron. Honestly, though, Ron would have been much more upset if he'd seen them dancing together earlier in the movie. They had all their clothes on, and that was more charged than anything the Horcrux could come up with. Do you remember those ill-fated romances of youth that could never last because of distance and because your boyfriend was completely against your best friend in a dangerous inter-school competition featuring dragons, mermaids, and the resurrection of the Dark Lord of Evil? Of course you don't, because your school wasn't utterly preposterous. Hermione Granger, however, went to Hogwarts, and during her 4th year, she became entangled in an incredibly brief relationship with the charming Victor Krum. This caused quite a bit of drama because Ron was super jealous but incapable of saying so because they needed to save that for the anticlimactic scene in the final movie. So it came down to Harry to be the one that Hermione talked to about boys. Seriously, Hermione? Harry? You can't find one female friend in the Gryffindor common room? She explains to him that her and Victor don't really have anything in common, that Victor is more of a physical being. This makes Harry's face light up as Hermione is clearly just revealed more than she meant to. According to her, he was just watching her study. Sure, Hermione, we were all just studying. Okay, someone needs to sit down the entire wizarding world and tell them that love potions are super creepy and should be much more frowned upon. By comparison, the Imperious Curse is literally called an unforgivable curse for forcing a person to do something against their will. So why is forcing someone to love you mostly played as a funny joke that the wizarding world doesn't take all that seriously? Love potions were used by Voldemort's mother to entangle his father into a relationship he didn't want, ultimately resulting in him being abandoned and turned into an evil snake man. Did you people not see that connection? When Ron gets ensnared by a love potion meant for Harry and Half-Blood Prince, the whole thing is framed like some teenage mischief. I'm sorry, no. Ron should have called the Wizarding World equivalent of Law & Order Special Victims Unit. The Wizarding SVU's caseload would be 98% love potion crimes, I'm pretty sure. In the Wizarding criminal justice system, love potion-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated Aurors who investigate these crimes are members of an elite squad known as the Wizarding Special Victims Unit. These are their stories. Probably the least subtle storyline in the entire Harry Potter franchise is that Albus Dumbledore and Grindelwald are totally in love with each other. It's subtle because the people making it just refuse to commit to it no matter how many letters I send. Still, the entire relationship is made up of innuendos, longing looks, and Jude Law trying to sell lovelorn heartbreak as hard as he can without using the words. Honestly, find you a man that looks at you like Jude Law looks at the Mirror of Erised. Crimes of Grindelwald dances around this with the franchise's most blatant hint yet in the form of a blood pact the two made to make sure neither could hurt the other. Yes, because what couple doesn't combine their blood to be made into an unbreakable vow together? Well, I mean, what couple aside from Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob Thornton? Well, there you have it. All the ways that the Harry Potter franchise threw the odd dirty wink your way, assuming you'd be too young to notice. Did we miss any good ones? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to ScreenRant for more.